is aligning staffing needs to business. Our speaker for this session is Dalbir Singh. Dalbir leads talent acquisition for Microsoft India for both campus and industry hiring. In this role, he has responsibility for acquiring best-in-class talent for the growing business needs of Microsoft in India. He is also part of worldwide staffing leadership team at Microsoft and works with international partners in shaping the future strategies of talent acquisition globally. Dalbir has over 15 years of experience in HR that spans across staffing, HR business partnering, organization development, and HR system. Please put your hands together to Dalbir.
Thank you. Am I audible? Can everybody hear me? I'm going to take the cue from Murthy. I'm not going to go up. I'm going to stand over here. Can I just request people? It's a little difficult to connect at the back. Since we have the opportunity, can I just request you guys to come up, please? Especially the last benchers. I love being there, but I would love to see you over here today. Or else I can go at the back and start from the back if you want. So if I can just ask people to come a little bit more in front. Very helpful. Thank you. Thank you. Especially those ones at the last. I would love to see you in front, please. Thank you. Sorry for pushing you, but let's make it more interactive. Let's make it more fun. Let's make it more real. All right. So since this is a fairly diverse group, I want to just spend about 2-3 minutes in just trying to understand the group a little bit more. So a couple of quick questions, and I'll appreciate if you can just stand up. So how many people are not from Bangalore? If they can please stand up. All right. That's not a bad number. Can I just request you to sit down? How many people not from staffing? All right. This is a solitary one. There are a couple. Okay. How many? Thank you. Have a seat, please. How many of you do a role which is generalist recruiting versus a very core role of just sourcing? So people who only do sourcing, can I just request you to stand up? Only sourcing versus everything in staffing? All right, have a seats. How many of you chose recruiting by choice versus by an accident? By choice? Okay, that's a good number. All right, thank you. First of all, thank you for making choice for this session. This is a subject which is very close to heart, a subject which I have been doing for I don't know how many years, many years. And it's a subject which is through a very well-researched model that we do. By the way, I'm not here to teach any theory over here. We'll just put it in the background. It's a very well-researched model that we do over here, which just helps us align in a very good, in a very robust way. It's not only used for staffing, it can be used for HR, it can be used for business, it can be used for strategy, it can be used for multiple other things which are there as well. So without being too theoretical, too preachy about this, I'm going to make this session through a lot of questions that I'm going to be asking you. A lot of these questions are the questions that I have evolved over my last 15 to 17 years that I've been in HR, and large parts of that I've spent in staffing. So I'm going to prompt you for a lot of questions. You don't answer or you don't ask me questions. We are just going to get stuck over there. So it'll be important for you to help move the session to actually ask some of those questions. Okay. So here's, hopefully it should go. Mr. Okay, all right. We've covered too much in advance. All right. So here's my first question that I want to start with. Staffing alignment to business. Do you at all think it is important or is it not important? Okay. Some thoughts, if you can just stand up and just say, why do you feel important? Everybody believes it is important. The world believes it is important. Couple of thoughts, observations, very helpful. Anybody from this side who wants to just have the first go? Why is it staffing is so important to the business? Okay. So right people, right job, that's alignment to business. Anything more, which is more deeper into the business that you can come up, think about? Yes, please. Good. So business goals, people goals have to go together. I think I'll just borrow the business goals from you because I'm going to touch a lot on business and strategy, and we'll try and kind of simplify all these things, which are just big jargons many a times. Anybody from the middle? So we have three groups now. So we have on the side, in the middle, on the left. Okay. Let's see who does better. Anybody over here? Yes, please. Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's why to make that top line and the bottom line, so the right people should be there.
Absolutely. Murthy spoke about, thank you, 70% of the cost comes from people. By the way, one more question. How many people from IT? Just raise your hands. All right, that's an overwhelming majority. And for us in IT, I'm also IT, all 16 years in IT, only don't know anything more than IT. Met up with a beautiful person today in the morning, part of the Viacom media team, and we had this fascinating discussion about me only having a narrow vision of IT and the kind of people that we look for, and she's in an industry where they look for very different set of people, which was very, very good. Good point. Sorry, one last thing. Somebody had a hand over here. Yes, why staffing is important to the business? Okay, beautiful, great point. We are the gatekeepers of the culture of the organization, and great point. We'll touch upon this point a little bit more in detail. Okay, so here is, my selling pitch for the next 56 minutes, why you should be attending this session. We are going to look at business understanding from a staffing lens, okay? And you can understand business from multiple views, multiple sides. The lens that we are going to be wearing today is the staffing lens, okay? How do you look at business? There's just so much to learn in business, but what is it which is important for the certain business outcomes which are to be met, and how do you align to that, okay? We're going to look at a holistic model. I'm not going to get too much into that. I'm hoping that we'll build it up as we go along, but it is going to be about three things. The first thing is going to be, as staffing organization, how do you adapt to business, okay? Because the business around us changes very, very fast, okay? So that's the first thing, how do you adapt to the business? The second one is, how do you coordinate in staffing to achieve what the business needs? So that's kind of part two for us. And the third one is, what are the kind of outcomes you're going to be driving for business? So this is less of a staffing discussion. This is going to be more of a business discussion, but purely from a staffing lens, okay? So if these three things are looking very, very gray, hazy, not able to understand at this stage, totally understandable. As we go along, we'll try and demystify some of these things. All right. With that, we are going to kind of start dipping deep into what the session is going to be. The first one is adapting to the business, and let me just ask one more question. How many of us get into the situation as staffing people where you are into a new business, new company, new role, new business group, new department, new leader, and you are asked, look, you have to go and build a recruiting plan or a recruiting strategy, whatever buzzword you want to use for that business. How many of us get into that situation at least once a year? Raise of hands. Pretty much, okay? That's going to be the key thing that we are going to understand today, that every time we get into this situation where we have to plan staffing or sourcing, whatever you want to call it, for the business, what's the best way to do that, okay? What's the best way to do it in a way that it purely aligns to what the business goals are going to be, okay? Let me take a quick kind of a 5-minute exercise over here, again through a set of questions. Now, when you get new into the business, okay, what are the first few set of things that you want to know that is going to enable you to build a staffing strategy? So as you get into the business, what are those key critical things that you want to understand which helps you to design your staffing strategy very well? Okay, we'll start over here on this side. Any quick questions, observations that you want to throw up? Okay. Talent landscape in the market, okay? Anything from the middle? Business model, okay? Good, good.
What the business is all about in the first place.
Okay.
What's going on.
Say a bit more.
For example, if I'm in IT,
Can I just request you to stand up? It's a good point that you're making.
so I come from an animation background. If I take a recruiter from the IT world
Mm-hmm.
who doesn't understand my world, then there's no point.
Okay.
So I would appreciate for the recruiter to understand what
So understanding of business. Sorry, I'm just articulating it very quickly so that we can move on. And every time somebody stands, please don't look at me. I could be the speaker, but we really are going to work as a team today. Okay, yes, a hand went over there. So if you can stand up and just look at everybody else than me. Okay, all right. Discussion with the manager. Anyone last one? Yes. Of course, Sameer is part of my team, so Sameer is going to get some secret sauce out, but I told him not to do that. But still, Sameer, go ahead.
Yeah, about the business line, then the product line, then the position we are looking for, what are the expectations, how that is aligned with the competitive landscape.
And I'm just going to shut
are.
up Sameer over here because the session is kind of covered over here. All right. Hey, good set of inputs. Yes, there's one hand over there. Yes, please stand up. Okay. Good point. So, impact many a times we kind of get muddled up in doing a set of activities, really not knowing what the final impact is going to be. I always say last, but I have to give it over here. Yes, please. Somewhere on the cultural aspects, the norms, the unstated things that we call the oxygen that we breathe is what we call as a culture. Yes, good points. Okay. Hey, so this is kind of the most critical, important thing for us in recruiting world to understand when we start building our plans or when we start building our business. Okay. I'm going to put in over here 3 things which we must be doing or ought to be doing the moment we say we want to understand the business, okay? So what's that first thing that we have to do, okay? The first thing that we have to do is to get an understanding of environment, okay? Now, environment could get interpreted in different terms and everything else, but here are the set of things I would say which are important for environment, okay? How many are familiar with this word called steeple? S-T-T-E-P-L-E. Steeple, yes, okay. So steeple is just an acronym which is going to help you to understand the environment better, which is what's social, what's technological, what is economic, what is political, and what is environmental. Okay, that's what kind of steeple really stands for. And I'm going to use one example today to just run through our entire session today, which will just help us that if I was doing this, then how am I going to do that? Okay, and I thought of a lot of examples, and I had a couple in my mind since this is IT audience, and I can literally see in every hand a mobile phone. So I thought the example that I'll take is if I'm a mobile phone company, if I'm the smartphone company, and I'm wanting to enter into India, that's the business that I do, okay? And as a recruiter, I'm sitting with this manager who's the CEO of this company who wants to come into India to do the smartphone, and I'm pretty confident that smartphone is something which will appeal to everybody because all of us kind of our life revolves around that. So we'll use that as an example, okay, to just kind of run through these things, okay? So if I'm the recruiter for this company who's wanting to get a new smartphone into the market, what are the kind of environmental things which will be important for me? Any quick things? Social, economical, political, legal, environmental, steeple. Social, what is important for me to know as a recruiter? Okay, yeah, social, smartphone is not really a smartphone. Smartphone is now a social status as well. Yes? Good one. You know what for younger people, what for children, what for middle age, what for men, what for women, what for old people, what for consumers, what for enterprise workers. That's all kind of part of the social which is there, okay? What is important economically in this example? Anybody who can think of? Price points, great. Anything else on economic? Affordability. What is the economic condition of the country, okay? If you are there in Finland right now, where the economy is shrinking by 7% every year or 6% every year, versus if you are here in India, where we are still growing, all the smaller percentage, the economic scenario kind of plays out quite a lot, okay? And I'm going to just fast track some of these things. Political, anything important politically which is going to impacting of what my strategy has to be or what I need to understand? Good. Any examples which come to my mind in the smartphone industry where politically it has played a very important role? Yes, can you just stand up and just share that? A little louder, please.
When BlackBerry has their enterprise server is not there in India, their enterprise server is in Canada. So for encryption of mail, they has to install the enterprise server in India, and because of that, they haven't installed that particular server in India. They have faced a big political problem, while encrypting the lot of official mails.
Absolutely great point, and sorry for cutting you short on that. BlackBerry, when it came to India, it got into a massive tussle with the government on encryption. Okay, that's purely a political thing. What it led to is disbandment of BlackBerry services in India for 2 days. That was the death knell for the company. I mean, very small thing like political consideration not being given, but that impacted because there were users who could not use their services for 2 days. Hundreds and lakhs and thousands of them just shifted to various platforms and they never came back. BlackBerry, from its leadership position of being the second or the third biggest worldwide player, we all know where BlackBerry stands today. So getting understanding, again in the interest of time, I'll just move. Getting understanding of this environment as a recruiter is one of the first key things that you have to do at the time, when you start building up your recruiting plans. Okay. The second one is strategy. Okay. Now strategy is a word that I love the most, I hate the most. Okay. The reason being that strategy is something which is just so overly used by everybody in everything. Okay. Let me just take quick 2 or 3 thoughts on what strategy means to you. What's the definition of strategy, or how would you define strategy? Okay, somebody who's done, I'll just give opportunity to others. Anybody from this side? Defining strategy, 1 or 2 words which come to your mind. Approach, okay. Sorry? It's a plan, okay. Anybody from that side, how would you define strategy? Good one. Going forward, roadmap. Yes. Anybody else? Okay. Prioritization of them. Okay. Looking at future, yes, at the back. Sorry, it's a plot. Okay. So here is, one of the most simplistic definitions that I have found about strategy. Okay. Which, if you wish, you can use that. Strategy is about tough. T-U-F. Okay. All that it means is that you'll have hundreds of things in front of you. It is about the trade-offs that you're going to do. It's about the uniqueness that you have, and it is about the fit that you're going to do. Okay, let's take our example. Now, there is this company who's coming into India, wants to introduce the new smartphone. What's the trade-off for them? The trade-off for them is there are hundreds and thousands of features which can go on a phone. Okay? However, it has to align to what is the environment saying and what is going to be important. So in this example, one of the things that they have to think about is how are they going to encrypt their servers so that they don't fall into the BlackBerry thing. Okay, they'll have to understand who their audience is and accordingly have the feature set, which is very, very important. So that's the trade-off. The uniqueness part is what differentiates your strategy with anybody else. Okay, there are hundreds and thousands of smartphones in the market. Okay, what is going to be that one key thing which differentiates? So all of us are smartphone users. Any ideas, anybody who's been using kind of a same brand for a very long time or a same phone for a very long time? I'm sure there have to be a few. Yes, please. S3, and why? What's the uniqueness for you? Okay, user interface, that's the uniqueness for you. Anybody else who's used a phone or a brand for a long time? iPhone, what's unique for you? Okay, well, yeah, I mean, uniqueness is, it's an iconic brand. That's what it stands out. Anybody else? Okay. All right. It's a big factor a lot of times because you're so used to it, it just ingrains in you. It's part of our DNAs, right? How many of you start your day by just checking mails and reading newspaper on cell phones? That's DNA change, okay? So that's the uniqueness. And finally, it is about fit. Anybody who can understand what this fit would mean in our example? Okay, that's one dimension to look at it. Anybody up from here, what a fit could mean? Okay, so fit really is about the cultural fit of strategy into an organization. Okay, this is about, here is something which is very aspirational for me to do. Okay, but does it fit into my DNA of the company? So this company may want to do a phone which is, let's say, a 5,000 rupee phone. Okay, now 5,000 rupee phone is going to sell like hotcakes. Okay, but is it a fit in my company? Do I have enough supply chain, distribution systems, processes set up to sell 5 million phones in India? I mean, does it fit into me or does it not fit into me? So that's an important one. Okay, just quickly moving ahead. Business results. Okay, we are still into understanding business right now, just to get everybody back. We are still trying to understand as a recruiter. I'm sitting with the CEO or the hiring manager, and I'm trying to understand business, and these are the various lenses that staffing should be using to understand that. Business results, okay, and there are different kind of business results that you can look for depending upon what your strategy is going to be and what environment you operate in. The business results could be somebody is after a market share. Any examples which come to mind where only market share is important and nothing else is important? Nokia, possibly. Anybody else? Yes? Micromax still worries about their profits. Okay. Another example of just the market share. Android, possibly. Let me give you an example. Amazon. Okay. Loss making. Okay. But the only thing why they want to be in India, why they want to spend $2 billion is they want to gain market share. Because ultimately, market share will decide what the profitability is. Once people get used to a thing, once it becomes a part of your lifestyle, it ingrains into you, that's when you really start minting money. Okay, so that's one business outcome. The other business outcome is fairly kind of straightforward. You want to have top line, so you want to grow. And the other one is what is called as profit. Okay, I want to be a profitable business, and hence. Now, what kind of business result you have, it impacts your strategy quite a lot. Okay, so if my business result is that I just want to have market share, and hence my strategy will be in a way, I don't worry about bottom lines, profit, efficiency, and everything else. If my bottom line is I want to earn profits, and hence my strategy will completely change because I have to be more agile, I have to be more nimble, I have to be more efficient, I have to look at my costs and kind of do everything else. So it is very, very important for you to understand that what is the final business outcome. Okay, so back to our discussion on staffing. I want to contextualize this. You are sitting with your hiring manager and just asking these set of 3 questions. Tell me a bit about environment. Tell me a little bit about your competition. Tell me what's the competitive landscape looking like. Tell me what your strategy is. Many a times you'll just see even CEOs fumble to put down the 3 strategic areas that they are addressing. They go all over the place to really define their strategy for you. You may want to ask them, what are your trade-offs? What's your uniqueness? How is it fitting into our organization? And finally asking them the questions about what are the business results are you after? Are you after market share? Are you after revenue? Are you after profit? Now this, in my view, gives you a good understanding as a staffing person that you got to know about the business. So here are some of the questions. You know what, what's the pistol? What's the articulated business strategy? What does the business looks like? What are the outcomes? You'll have a good understanding of the environment that you operate. You'll have a good understanding of what the outcomes you're looking and what is the strategy. Finally, the thing that I want you to really, really take away from this slide is you have to understand what the business strategy is and what the business outcomes are. Okay? Staffing, sourcing is absolutely of no use unless and until it aligns to this thing which is called as the business strategy. And it may take a little time for you to reach over there, but one of the most critical and important things that we have to go. Okay, so we'll now kind of start building this little model. Yes. Be a little louder, please, if I can request you to stand up. Okay. Okay, but a good question. If it doesn't, please come back after about 15 minutes and ask that question again. Okay. So here is a little system model, the model that I told you right in the beginning. So we're going to help build that. So as a recruiter, you have to understand the environment, you have to understand the strategy well, and you have to understand the outcomes well. And the important thing is all of them are correlated. Your environment, what is happening over there, will define what your strategy is, and your outcomes will define what your strategy is. So strategy is really kind of somewhere in the middle, and many a times your outcomes will be impacted by the kind of environment that you operate in. Okay, so that's kind of the part one of our model. Okay, now we go to the part two of our model. Okay, which I told you. So the first one is about understanding the business. The second one is about now we are into core of staffing, where we have understood the business, and now we are going to be coordinating for that business. Okay, this is where our real expertise comes in. Okay, now what does that mean? The first thing is we have to understand, for me to execute on that strategy, what's the organizational system that I need? Okay, now that's a very broad term to say, what does an org system mean? The org system, the things that I've prioritized are following. Okay, the first one is, what's the kind of organizational pyramid which is there, which is going to facilitate that strategy? Everybody familiar with org pyramids? Yes, okay. Top, middle, bottom, okay. So what's the pyramid which is important for me to meet that strategy, okay? Maybe if I am in a volume game, like let's say Amazon, I will have a very heavy bottom organization where there are hundreds and thousands of people which are there. If my strategy is all about creating something really, really innovative, I need to look at a very different org pyramid where there are a lot of people who are senior ICs who are really working on that, that bit which is there. So understanding of org system is very, very important. The second one is, what is my org diversity? Any definitions of diversity over here? The most commonly known. Any other dimensions of diversity that you can think of? Skill sets, okay. Generational, very important one. Okay, okay. So going back to our example of organizational diversity, smartphones is most well understood by whom? By young people. Okay, it's understood by college grads, MBA grads, people who are typically about less than 2, 3, 4, 5 years of experience. You'll be amazed the amount of time that they spend. Okay, that could be a diversity which could be a very important element for me to look when I start defining what my org pyramid has to look like. So these are some important questions to be kept in mind when you're thinking about what that organizational diversity has to be. Okay, the second one is leadership. Okay, and again, leadership is kind of understood in multiple ways and context and everything. Over here, we will say leadership to include managers also. So if there are 3 parts of the organization, there is a bottom part, there's a middle part, there's a top part. So this is middle and top. Okay, it's very, very important for us to understand as recruiters, as staffing professionals, that for me to attain my strategy, what is the important leadership that I need? Okay. Now back to our question, if our strategy is really about volume, okay, then I'm going to need some leaders who really understand supply chain very, very well. Okay, if my strategy is about innovation, I need to have leaders who understand innovation very, very well. If my strategy is about retailing that, they really need to be leaders who understand how an e-retailing works. Okay, therefore, for you to ask this question to your hiring manager or to your CEO or to your leader, that look at your current leadership team, look at your strategy, and tell me where are your gaps. Okay, it's a very powerful question to ask, and many a times what you will realize is what you have and what you want to achieve, there's just a significant amount of dissonance between them, which will get you to the question that who are those pivotal leaders, okay? That's a common word that we use a lot these days. What is that pivotal talent that you will need to get your strategy? It's not about hundreds and thousands of them. It's about those 3 key people, 5 key leaders that you have to get, which will enable your strategy. Very, very important, very, very critical question for you to ask as you build your sourcing plans on what your leadership is, what your strategy is, what kind of leadership is going to take you to that strategy, and what will come out of that is what is that key critical pivotal talent which is for you. After that is people. What are the skills, what are the competencies that you have to build up? Fairly simple, we do it day in and day out. That's something which is fairly straightforward, okay? So again, what are the key questions to ask? And some of these meetings that we get into, you've got all of about 15 minutes, 30 minutes for these. You don't get 2 days for that meeting. And hence, I've listed down, and of course, you'll get these slides. Key questions to ask to understand this. Does the org system support the strategy? Are there the right leaders? Do people have the right skills? Again, very 3 simple questions. And what will come out of this is now very specifically for sourcing. What is the pivotal talent to be sourced? Who are the key leaders to be sourced? What is the org pyramid to be built? What are the IC skills to be sourced? Okay. Now the bottom line again over here that remains is what supports business strategy over here? Always keep on asking that question because that's the most key, crucial question to ask at any point of time. Let me just take a pause. Let me just take a little break. If it is making sense, not making sense, is it too hazy, am I too fast? Some observations will be very helpful. Is it making sense? Yes? Okay, all right, good. Any questions at this stage? Yes?
In an India market, which has been my observation, and few of my colleagues are in line to that. Do we actually are in a situation to do a perfect analysis for attrition? Because in India, we are not like a country like United States or UK, where a startup doesn't matter. Maybe the role in which a person is working, that's more important to those people. But in India, which I have seen, is more on the brand. Because suppose someone give me a call up from Microsoft or Amazon. I'm just giving an example, and I'm working at a startup company. I'll think, okay, fine.
Okay, we are hiring, by the way.
Anyway, so that's a good option. So, if we go in the attrition analysis part, so do you think we actually are in a situation to evaluate India hiring just with that parameter?
Sure, that's a good question, and I should have covered that. Attrition over here from, again, the staffing lens, okay? This is about understanding attrition, first of all, from a retentivity in the first 1 year. You're bringing in a set of people, how many of them are staying in the first 1 year? Because whatever be the environment, whatever be the onboarding, whatever be the manager, nobody joins a company to leave in a year. That's a universally accepted thing, okay? Now you have to see, are there people leaving first year? And if they are leaving, you have to go back and see, are you hiring the right set of people? That's one, okay? The second part of the attrition is, there's this fad which is going these days, which is about gender diversity. And in attrition, you have to look at, are you losing more men? Are you losing more women? Not in absolute term, but in percentage terms. That will again inform back into what your staffing strategy has to be. The third important factor of attrition is what is good attrition and what's bad attrition. What's good for my company? Yeah, glad, these people are leaving. They were not of much use to us. They were not getting value. We were not getting value. Good that they're leaving. Typically, depending upon the industry, 3 to 6% is a very accepted norm. Okay. After that is bad attrition. Bad that this guy is leaving my company. Okay. What is that percentage? Now again, depending upon the industry, it could be anywhere between about 4% can go all the way to about 15, 20, 25%. It depends. In BPO you experience more versus in some very high-tech industries, which is lower. So to answer your question, looking at attrition from those 3 angles will just help you inform better as to what your staffing strategy has to be. It's a very, very important factor which basically influences, are you getting in the right set of people or are you not getting the right set of people? Any more questions at this stage? Yes, one at the back.
synapse between, it should be a synapse between what's happening in the outside world and what the internal people perceive it as.
So,
So should that not also be
yeah, I
covered?
guess we kind of partly, we didn't touch too much in detail. That's what we cover in the environment, where we say talent landscape, where we look at what is internal, what is external, what's the competition doing, what's the competition talent, what is our talent, and some of those things. Does it answer your question?
Well, partly yes. So if you plan to cover it somewhere else, I'm fine.
Okay, we'll come back. I'll touch upon it once again. Right, so you know, this is kind of coordinating for the business from a sourcing viewpoint. That's one of the most critical key things. And again, you know, the set of questions that we put in over here, when you're sitting in that meeting with your CEO, asking these questions will just help you a lot. And over here, a lot of data is also very helpful. So if you can already look at what the org pyramid looks like, is it really a pyramid or is it not a pyramid? What your attrition analysis looks like, what your engagement analysis looks like, what's the tenure of your leaders in the organization? Many a times we are fascinated by this thing, oh, you know what, I have a leadership team which has been stable for the last 8 years. I don't know if it's a good thing, okay? I don't know if it's a good thing. The environment, the business around us is just changing so very fast that you need to have the right set of people at the right positions. Many a times we also get very fascinated by this fact that there's been no attrition on my team for the last 8 years or last 7 years, okay? Or I have built 90% of my leadership team internally. Now, is that the right thing? I'm not sure. Our company, Microsoft, kind of learned it a little in the hard way, where we kind of had a few years of challenges in our business. And one of the key things that we attributed to was that we were just developing and focusing too much internally. We were just not going externally to hire. So about 5 years back, we took an intentional call, and we said that instead of saying that 100% of our staffing teams or leadership teams are going to come internally, we said that split is going to be maybe 60-40, 50-50, 70-30, depending upon the business dynamics and everything else. So some of that research, as you go into that meeting, is a very important, very critical one. Again, all of it aligned to what supports your business strategy. So that's a very important question that you ask. Okay. Right, so we are building this model, okay, and I'm going to put in some more things into this. Are we all clear? So we started off by saying how we are adapting to the business, understanding the environment, what the strategy is, what are the outcomes that we are looking for, and then comes, you know what, these three things, okay? Now the important thing will be the arrows which come, okay? What's the org system that is needed for strategy, okay? Is it more senior, less junior, more senior, more managers? It's about what are the kind of leaders which are needed for that strategy. Is it more retail side? Is it more supply chain side? Is it more innovative, less innovative? Really depends upon what is the strategy that you're driving, and then again, you know, what are the kind of people that you're driving. So this model doesn't exist in isolation. It really kind of exists because each one of these boxes that you see, they are influencing each other. They're just speaking to each other. They're connecting to each other. And the beauty of this really comes about because it is so well integrated and connected and gives you a very holistic thinking on this entire thing. Are we good over here? Any questions at this stage? No? All right. Okay. Right. So the last one is driving the outcomes for the business is culture. Okay. So let me just spend a little bit of time over here. How many of you as staffing consultants specifically check through an interview on specific set of cultural things which are needed in a person to come into the organization? And I'm trying to understand how many companies exist over here. So how many people do a cultural assessment of people? 1, 2, let's say about 20, 25%. How many of you do cultural assessment which is different from the company, which is specifically for the jobs? I would say even more lesser, okay? First of all, let's try and define what a cultural is and what a cultural attribute is. And some of you who have seen a cultural attribute really helping you to get the right person who's helpful to the business. Any example somebody wants to share, or anybody wants to share a specific attribute which is so critical for the company that it connects to the business strategy? Yes, if you could please stand. And domain? Would domain be a culture or a skill? Mm-hmm.
investing much towards the candidate
Okay.
when I'm hiring him.
Okay.
It will be easy for him to learn.
Typically in
and
IT world, we would categorize that more as a skill that we would hire for versus a culture that we would, but it could have its own dimension and nuances depending upon what organization that you sit in. Anybody else who's kind of seen some good, solid cultural attributes? Yes, over here.
We all are aware of the big merger that has happened between Sun Pharma and Ranbaxy. Two very, culturally very different in terms of the way they approach business, the kind of people they have, and in terms of the basic DNA of the organization, there's a big difference.
Okay.
So this is a very good example wherein they are in the midst of their integration and they are having challenges in terms of a cultural alignment. Now, having recruited for Sun Pharma, the culture thing comes in first. So they have pharma being conservative as it is. The first thing comes to their mind when hiring a person is not about capabilities, competencies, but which set of companies do they come from. So they define the top 7, 8 companies.
Beautiful way to really kind of articulate. There are very few organizations who would first look for a culture fit and then say, what skill is something which can kind of come by. Anybody? Yes, over here. Hey, Ritesh, Sapient. A lot of people from Sapient today. Good to see.
Thank you. Okay, so in fact, specifically on culture bit, we in Sapient, we have set of 6 core values. So it could be, maybe I will name 1 or 2. It could be relationships, it could be openness, it could be client-focused delivery, or it could be creativity or people growth. So we just look at the fitment from our core value perspective. So it's not just about a skill or a competency that we look at. We have something called as attributes discussion, where we look at the fitment from a core value perspective.
Got that. Great point. Thank you for sharing that. And let's just go back to our example of smartphone that we started. Okay. Typically, since this is the world that I come from, so I'll be able to speak a bit on that. The smartphone industry today is really about very fast innovation. Okay. It's about, here is a feature set which came in today, here is the next feature set, here's another one. All of that happens in a matter of about a month or days or weeks, and at times within the same day you could have multiple features coming out. Okay. Now let's say, we are now building this new phone, and one of the things that we have defined for ourselves is we are going to be in this phase where we are going to do a lot of feature set very, very quickly to beat the competition, okay? Because that's what is going to get us the market share, okay? Now, can I just ask you to think, what is that cultural attribute, one cultural attribute, which will be most important when you are looking to do this kind of a business, which is quick coding, creating features, thinking features, putting it out in the market, getting them on the phone, and people using that? Innovation, okay? Anybody else? Anything else? Sorry? Adapting to the change, yes. I think adaptability is a very good point. Anything else which comes from there? Yes. Adaptability, good one. Let me just articulate this a little bit further. It's about hiring people who are nimble and agile. Nimble and agile. That becomes a very important cultural attribute that you hire. And again, when you're sitting in that discussion, that's a very important critical question to ask your hiring manager or CEO, whomsoever you are with. Keep in mind your strategy, okay? And tell me the most critical cultural attribute which will help you to achieve that strategy. In our example, therefore, we have to hire people who can think on the fly, quick, who are not resistant to change. I mean, you can question change, that's absolutely okay to get that change right, but you cannot have people who are going to have this goalpost and say, I'm not for this change, okay? Because you just need to move very, very fast and very, very quick. Therefore, in our example, having agility as a critical cultural attribute for recruiters to focus and assess and get people on the table who are very agile, very nimble in their thinking, in the way they move forward, is a very, very important thing. And again, I would, many a times we do not focus as recruiters on the cultural aspect. It's more about the skills, the domain, the technical knowledge, know-how, all of that is very, very important. But here is a deal breaker many a times, which is that you can have best of the person who knew everything on the smartphone, okay? But this guy gets stuck, okay? He's not a team player. This guy really wants his point of view only, is not agile enough to move with others. That's curtains for you, okay? So that's a very, very important aspect which is there, okay? Just in the interest of time, we'll kind of go forward. So ask questions like, does the culture aid your strategy? What are those cultural attributes which are most important? And again, what will come out is, what are those attributes and how do you assess those attributes? It could be by the way of drafting 5 questions, a few scenarios that just helps you to understand that better. Again, I'll focus. Culture has to support what the business strategy is. We cannot have some nice things. Oh, you know what? We want to have teamwork. Yeah, I mean, teamwork is always good to have, but teamwork for what? Is it a critical part of your business strategy? Is it going to enable something for you, or is it not going to enable? Those are the important questions to ask. So, we have understood till here. When we are starting our meeting, we need to understand environment, what the strategy is, what the outcomes are, what kind of org system do we need which aligns to the strategy, what kind of leaders do you need, what kind of people, what kind of skills do they need to have, and then the final point which comes is that what is the culture in the people, in the leader which is needed, and in the organizational culture which is to be developed, which finally is going to help you to understand that how you're going to align to the business strategy, okay? So, I'll just repeatedly say this again, understanding of this box over there, which is the strategy box, I think that's key and fundamental for any staffing person. If you are not able to articulate the business strategy of your team that you're hiring, your company that you're hiring in very crisp 30 seconds, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 30 minutes, 3 hours, 2 days, those are the various dimensions of it. I think we are just not doing our job. And many a times, I do come into, I hire, we have a fairly large staffing team, and of course, staffing teams keep on churning as well. So we are always there in the market hiring for new people. And most of the times, I only ask one question in my interview, okay, which is really about, tell me, how's your strategy in staffing meeting the business objectives? That's all, okay? Because that's why all of us are existing. We are not existing because we love doing recruiting. We are not existing because source mix is important. We are not existing because something else is important. We are really existing because we have a specific purpose, and that purpose is to make a sourcing or a staffing strategy which helps to achieve what the business outcomes are going to be. So that's a very key critical thing. So that's a little model. I hate calling models and things like that, but over the years, I found this to be very, very helpful. When I used to start 7, 8 years back, I would keep a cheat sheet in front of me, and I would go through each one of the boxes. Things have changed a little bit now. I don't need to keep that cheat sheet. It kind of automatically starts coming through. And many a times you'll have to go a little differently, okay? There could be some leaders with whom you may want to start first with outcomes, okay? Really understanding what are you wanting to do, okay? And then directly come on to some of the aspects over here. With some leaders, where you are yourself not very sure of what this person is trying to do, what the company is trying to do, you may want to start first with environment so that you are able to build your own understanding a little bit better, and then you come on to strategy. So any which way that you come, this is kind of the core part which is there, understanding what org system will be important for the strategy, what leaders are needed, what people are needed, and ultimately never miss this point on culture, because that's the oxygen that the organization lives and breathes. You don't get culturally right people into the organization, they will eventually lead. And what both Murthy and Shali talk about in the morning, just the cost of getting the wrong people. And many a times, they are not wrong people because they don't have technical skills. They're wrong people because they didn't fit it into the team, they were not culturally aligned. Some of those aspects play up quite a lot versus the technical capability, because we are at a stage now where people are technically adept, there are enough resources which are available to develop them. It really is about that cultural alignment of people. And we as recruiters, we are the gatekeepers over there. First of all, in understanding what parts of culture are important to achieve that strategy, and then really assessing that cultural parts very, very deeply. Pause, questions, observations? Yes? Can I just request you to speak into the mic?
organization where thousands of people, 10,000s of people are hired in a year. So in a services organization, do you think it is really applicable?
I personally implemented this in variety of organizations, okay? And this is not about every meeting that you do, okay? This is about doing meeting with your critical senior stakeholders in the company. So this is important for your meeting with CEO, okay? This is important for meeting the directs of the CEO. This is a meeting which is important, some senior hiring managers. This is not important for 400 interviews that you have. This is not going to get you anywhere. So that's a good contextualization to have. There's a certain altitude and an elevation where this discussion has to happen, and that altitude is pretty much at a senior level.
Thank
you. Good call out.
I have a question. So you mentioned that there are few business leaders where we have to start with outcomes. There are few where you have to start with environment. So how do you really assess or figure out how, whether to start with outcomes or environment?
You're not supposed to ask very difficult questions. It's the gut thing that he talked about. It's about that I thing that he talked about. For me as a recruiter who's done recruiting for 15 years, one of the key skills that I look for in people is the skill of judgment. Okay, does anybody resonate with that skill of judgment? And for me, the skill of judgment is how do you make a decision with minimal information being available? That's really judgment. You know what? If you have there are 10 things, 9 are known, and you have to predict the 10th thing, easy. You don't need a judgment. Judgment really comes into play when there are 10 things over there, there are 2 which are known, and you know what? You have to take still a decision. Okay? So it's the skill of judgment that you develop over a period of time of really understanding what the needs of this leader are going to be and what's the right place. I'm sorry, I'll not be able to give it to you a secret sauce of that with this X leader start at Y point and with a Z start at a point. That really is about judgment. And judgment is something that you develop, build over a period of time. Nobody teaches you judgment. Many a times, we respect our elders, and one is, of course, the age and everything else which is there. What I really respect my elders is the value of judgment that they bring on anything, okay? Because they have seen a lot of things, they're able to synthesize all of that, and then say, you know what, here is my judgment that this is the way we should be approaching. So that's the skill of the judgment. Yes, question over there.
Very vague information when it comes to business strategies. You don't have information readily available. Probably business wants to give you heads up about the business coming ahead. So how do you deal with such a situation where the leader business itself is collecting information more and they want to keep recruiters updated about it?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that question. It's about how much are you. Sorry, yes, sir. The question really is that many a times the business information that is needed as a recruiter is not available. Business doesn't give it to you. There's a little heads up which comes once in a while. What do? As a recruiter, one of the key skills, of course there are many of them, business acumen is one of the key skills that you need to have, okay? For your business, okay, through the lens that I have talked through, there should not be anybody better in the organization to talk on that. You are the one who should be able to go and talk and sell and all of that. How's that going to come? That's not going to come by just, looking at a memo which came out which detailed the strategy. You have to be up on your reading, what's happening in the environment, what is the competition, why competition. In our example that we took of smartphones, now what's the strategy of Apple? What's the strategy of Android? What's the strategy of Samsung? What's the strategy of Microsoft? Why one's doing better? Why the other one is not doing better? Who are the key leadership teams? Who are the key innovators? Who are in India? Who are outside? Where the world is moving? What is the total proliferation which is there? What's the total population of the world? I mean, all these things, the moment you start reading about these things, that's what really makes you well informed, so that when you go in front of the business, you're just not asking these questions. You are really helping them to understand that landscape a bit more. And the moment you're going to come in front of them not even knowing things about the business that they are into, I think, you know what, you start just lowering your credibility from there. So a certain level of preparedness is very important. A certain level of just investing time into increasing your business acumen is very, very important. One of the key things that we do at Microsoft for recruiting organizations is the staff meetings which happen, which are really about discussing what the business is doing, what the strategy is, what are the reds, what are the greens, what are the yellows. Recruiters just go sit over there. They may not contribute very significantly over there, but the fact that they know everything about the business is very helpful for them to have a holistic understanding, because ultimately they are the ones who will go out in the market and really fetch that talent. So that's a good question. Again, you would no ready recipe for that, but how much are you going to be investing in that business acumen for yourself is a very critical point of how well are you going to show up in front of your business. Yes, please. Sorry, could you just use the mic so that others are able to hear as well?
The frequency at which you look at this, and are there any forecasting models with such a volatile business situation? The forecasting is typically done for how long in time frame?
I would say, you know what, I made use of this less for forecasting of numbers, okay? I mean, forecasting of numbers, the volatility, as you rightly said, the markets that we are into, this model doesn't predict the numbers for you, okay? This really predicts at a higher level what are the important things for the organization for a recruiting viewpoint, which are important to be considered, okay? You would typically do about twice a year, okay? Not more than that, or maybe if you really, really want to be very agile, you may do it once a quarter with your business. But the second, third, and the fourth meeting will be more revalidation of what you found in the first meeting and just course correcting. Workforce planning is a much better way, where which is kind of more arithmetic to kind of arrive at those numbers. And I'm glad that you asked that questions. You know, many a times as recruiters, we just get lost in the numbers. Okay, I have to hire 300 people, 200 of this kind, 50 of this skill, 150 of that, that's the percentage, that's attrition which is going to happen. That's all very, very important. But you don't have an understanding of this, that just becomes a very mechanical exercise for you, where you really are a rec filler versus a business partner or a talent partner or a staffing partner to the business. This is what gives you that seat on the table, because you're not just getting to say that I'm going to fill 300 people, I'm helping them to achieve their business outcome by getting the right talent. So that's the bit of differentiation I would put between the number kind of things on workforce planning, this being a higher order bit, which is more to align what the overall staffing needs are to the business. Yes. There are too many questions in the middle right now. We need to balance it out a little bit.
I think something to add to what you were just mentioning. This is more appropriate for a situation and perhaps they are just starting off. But what if you are hired as a recruiter and at an entry-level position where you already have a recruitment system which is already set? So how does this come into play, where you feel that yes, you need to contribute, you need to understand, and it's like you get into a mid of a business where you realize that you have to fill in the positions, you have like 300 open. How to go about it?
So there are two ways you can look at it, okay? Do you want to be a victim, do you want to be a part of the herd, what everybody is doing and just start doing that? Or are you just going to give a pause and first say that, for me, understanding of this is more important before I really set myself up for requisition? I can tell you, no business leader, if you set it up in that way, refuses to spend half an hour with you on this, okay? We get into a lot of these situations where somebody is joining here, somebody's over here, but taking that little bit of pause to understand what this throws up, and what this really kind of throws up is, these set of things, what is strategy? What is that alignment? How do you really understand whether it's an activity or are you really impacting the business? And how do you kind of make it more holistic? If you kind of directly jump into that, look, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, as a recruiter, I have also done that. Okay, but over the years, as you add experience, taking that pause and understanding and then jumping is a much better thing. And I can understand there could be some situations where there's not even a half an hour, so that's totally understandable.
What I normally seen is let's assume some 15 hours are allocated to some recruiter, they immediately start jumping onto Naukri or portal and start. But they don't understand that if they go and sit with the business, the 15 requirements will percolate down to 10. Because you're going to put the challenges, because you're going to do a groundwork and say, okay, these kind of skills are available with this kind of matrix salary, and these are the notice period. Are you ready to wait for it? So when you have a discussion, there is a negotiation done with the business. And I think today, I hope everyone will agree that recruitment is no more a support function, it's a business function.
It's a business-driven function where we contribute to the business. Well said and well articulated. We are being pushed out. I had fun doing this session. Thank you for making my job easy by answering all the questions, asking the right set of questions, and really making, what I really enjoyed. So thank you for your participation, and thank you for spending time. I'm hoping you're going to take some nuggets away from this session, and hopefully, you're going to use that. dalbir@microsoft.com, dalbir35@hotmail.com. Those are two my email IDs. I would love to be in touch. I'm there on LinkedIn if you want to send a request. I would love to just increase my network with the set of people that I've interacted today. Really, really a great bunch. Thank you very much.